And a very warm welcome. On occasions, I'll do a quick video um, in order to be able to give some contextual story around the subject matter. And what we're really focusing here today is introducing you to the idea of probabilistic determinations that are made with AI and deterministic, and what the difference are and how you, as an engineer who are deterministic based, can work with something that isn't, and how do you actually create value as a consequence of that. Now, to do that, you need some sort of historical understanding of how we got to here and how AI actually works in the terms of how it thinks and how it arrives at conclusions. So I just want to give you some idea of my experience on this, which dates back to 1988 when we started, certainly Europe's first multimedia company. And we discovered very quickly that if you just pile a lot of text at somebody, and much more than you would in a book, as we're all experiencing now, you needed to use some way of linking passages within that text to a given perspective to give it context. And this was hailed as a marvelous new invention. How evolved we became, until an Indian professor pointed out that they used hypertext in Ramayana, the Mahabharata, which was 15 BC, and of course the Vedas. So it gave me my first glimpse at just how clever our neural networks are and what we do naturally. So that was the first hint. Then with the CEO of Intel back in 1990, I interviewed Andy Grove in the USA. And he explained to me after the interview that they'd put so much money into developing a chipset that could convert voice to text. And he gave me a card, which I then demonstrated live on Sky News at prime time from the UK that went out into Europe, and it didn't work. And the reason being is when you're doing live TV, you've got, in this case, 5 cameras on you, and your voice gets tense because you're kind of nervous. It's live. If you screw up, it doesn't work, and it didn't. And the reason being is that they didn't use probabilistic. They weren't doing probability. They were trying to create all the rules that were required for a piece of software to listen to the voice and in real time translate that. And he said they just went through layers and layers of realization of the complexity that we as humans have in anticipating where we use probability. When we listen or when we read, we're actually working out already what the next word probably is based upon all the visual and sensory input and our own intellectual understanding, the contextual understanding of the words that have been used. I mean, I was particularly fascinated because I think in patterns. I read and recognize words as patterns and I replicate them. So I can read extremely fast and determine not just what words come, but what sentences, the meaning and the intent. Because I'm a human being, not a chimpanzee, I can understand intent that was behind those words at the same time. And that's when your creativity can kick in. So that to me was some pivotal work. It didn't work because they couldn't program all of those rules to make it work properly. And then with 1999, I was part of a CommerceNet with Tannenbaum. Marty was the AI expert from Stanford at the time, and he was pivotal in working out a lot of the basic protocols within the internet. And through CommerceNet, which was a not-for-profit body funded by Vice President Al Gore, they developed the use of the XML, which is really a standards translator. So the way it was explained to Gore was that if you have a SKU number, a product number of, say, a ball bearing, one manufacturers will have a different SKU number to the other. And the logic was, so long as there were standards around those SKU numbers, or indeed anything else, you could create a translator in the middle that would say, when someone asks if you've got any ball bearing SKU number B, it would then translate to the another party, they mean A. That was it. That was simply all it tried to do. But that transformed the internet from being a place for information to being able to automate business processes much more efficiently. But again, it was this contextual translation which was at the heart of the matter. And XML, again, still used deterministic code. And Google sort of started changing that with their paper in 2017, where they successfully developed language translation. Now, they did start to use probabilistic, but it was still in its very early infancy, but it gave the capacity for much greater complexity. And it was able to do it because it was comfortable with a probability and approximation as opposed to a calculated certainty. And that's where you'll see in your world the tension arising all the time between calculated certainties and points of truth and the use of AI, which is based on, it probably is, but it may not be. All right. And you're going to have to get your heads around that to really be able to take advantage of AI and start using it in a big way. And then, of course, we got to ChatGPT-4, ChatGPT, and this is Sam and Elon Musk. And it really did pull together some of the best brains because it was intended to be a not-for-profit common good activity that people really pulled together and created the first probabilistic modeling. And I'm just going to run through what that looks like. And the most important thing is, if you just use any large language model on its own, it will be wrong. It will hallucinate, and it will lie. It's programmed on game theory to win. So context became a very important aspect, and indeed it's the gold.